It's time to take a look at what's happening around Wyoming. I'm Wendy Corr, bringing you headlines from the Cowboy State Daily newsroom for Monday, May 6th. Upon hearing the phrase airdropping grizzlies, a layperson's mind might go with wild images of huge roaring bears parachuting from the sky. The reality isn't quite that crazy, but Outdoors reporter Mark Hines says if all goes as planned, perhaps some Wyoming grizzlies could find themselves slung under helicopters in a drug-induced stupor on the last leg of their journey to a new home in Washington state.
If anybody ever saw the movie Operation Dumbo Drop, where they dropped an elephant with a parachute, it's not going to be that fun. It's pretty mundane. Basically, it just means they're going, just as they would move grizzlies into some areas with trucks, it's the same thing, except they use an aircraft. So the grizzly is put inside a cage or a container of, they're tranquilized, of course, and then put inside a cage or container of some sort, and then they're taken by aircraft to the location, and then allowed to wake up and get their bearings a little bit, and then released. So sorry, folks. I thought I was going to have a story about grizzlies dropping from the sky in parachutes. That's not. So it's not what is happening.
The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and other federal agencies have said that airdropping bears will likely be the preferred method of getting new grizzlies to remote locations in Washington's North Cascades ecosystem. Hot Springs State Park is the most visited state park in Wyoming. The state of Wyoming recently asked potential investors to dream big about the park's future, and Cowboy State Daily's Renee Jean reports that the state is willing to put a large chunk of money behind any improvements.
The state is proposing to spend about $25 million there on upgrades, but that's just a drop in the bucket compared to what its selected partner, Wyoming LLC, would be putting into the park. Their punch list includes really big projects: reconstructing the Hot Springs Hotel so that it has a convention center, positioning that so that the motel rooms face the river instead of the parking lot. They reconstruct the teepee pools and turn that into kind of an adult-oriented wellness center. The Star Plunge would keep its mid-century historic theme, but it would get a poolside diner, kid-friendly water features like slides and swimming pools.
The park has long laid claim to being the world's largest mineral hot springs and draws upward of 1.2 million to 1.9 million visitors a year. The Medicine Lodge State Archaeological Site, located near Hyattville in the Bighorn Basin, just completed the installation of a first-of-its-kind educational experience. And Cowboy State Daily's Andrew Rossi says it's a mind-blowing integration of technology and culture that immerses visitors in thousands of years of indigenous history through seasons, sights, and sound.
At Medicine Lodge, they felt they were telling the story of the archaeology, the history, and the wildlife that are there now, but they didn't really have a way to tell the cultural story. And the culture of Medicine Lodge goes back for thousands upon thousands of years. So the cultural experience is just that. It's an experience. It's not a museum exhibit or like anything else that a lot of people probably experience, because the best way to experience culture is to have culture experience with you, with the people who created it. And that's exactly what the cultural experience is. It's been several years in the making, and it's an entirely unique thing in Wyoming, possibly the United States, because it lets the culture tell its own story.
The Medicine Lodge Cultural Experience will officially open to visitors later this spring. A local effort to establish passenger rail service connecting Cheyenne to Colorado's Front Range may seem a pipe dream to some, but an effort to make it happen has been gaining momentum, according to Cowboy State Daily's Leo Wolfson.
Supporters of this project have been coordinating with a Front Range passenger rail project to kind of try to kind of hop onto that effort, which is basically a rail service that would connect Fort Collins through Denver and south to Pueblo. They are hoping in Cheyenne that there could be an extension built on to this project to connect Cheyenne to Fort Collins. It's a really interesting effort and one that is possibly gaining steam, especially considering there's going to be a ballot initiative going before the Colorado voters this November that would provide a significant amount of funding for the rail line through a tax. If it is passed by the voters, which would really open up a door for the Cheyenne extension on the project.
Under the best case scenario, the project would still be 3 to 5 years off, but Wolfson says supporters are trying to explore different options for different carriers, which could include Amtrak. Updates to the Biden administration's Western Solar Plan would allow more streamlined development of utility-scale solar farms in Wyoming, which means more money being invested in solar farms here. But critics feel the Bureau of Land Management, which would oversee the project, isn't considering all the options, according to energy reporter Pat Mayo.
They feel that the BLM is overlooking what is called distributed generation. So what is that? That is like solar panels on parking canopies, on tops of roofs of buildings. Suggestions are being made to build solar farms on top of abandoned coal mines, things of that sort. That's distributed generation. The BLM doesn't seem to be considering that, though. They seem to be kind of moving in a different direction where they would just build these huge agrivoltaic farms, that would involve maybe sheep grazing underneath the panels and so forth, and cattle too.
The plan is meant to serve as a roadmap for solar development in areas where the BLM doesn't think dangers will be posed to local habitats. And Stacy Bousseau and her daughters have been the first in line to enter Yellowstone National Park through the east entrance on opening day of the summer season for 6 years running. She did it again Friday, and Cowboy State Daily's Andrew Rossi was there.
Stacy and your daughters thought, why not be the first family in the park? And it's just a tradition that they've kept going, although they say they don't plan on doing it every year. They like doing it every year, but it's kind of an impulsive decision. They just decide a couple days before if they want to do it, and then they pack up the car, make all their plans, and head up there. They won't give me exactly the time that they get there to make sure they're first, but they get there early, and it is a long night in the chilly region of the east entrance, but they do it not to be first. They do it because it's a fun tradition that they've developed where they get to spend time with and enjoy each other as a family wants to do.
There will be a time when Bousseau and her family won't be at the front of the line, but for one more year, they were together with an empty road in front of them, soon filled with more laughter and memories. And that's today's news. Get your free digital subscription to Wyoming's only statewide newspaper by hitting the subscribe button on cowboystatedaily.com. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. I'm Wendy Corr for Cowboy State Daily.